A battered young man falls into a desolate ravine. His last thoughts are consumed by a single burning desire for revenge. As he lies broken, a mysterious girl with long dark hair approaches, observing that it has been centuries since she last encountered a human. The story flashes back to Toa Kazuki, a 17-year-old high school student, enjoying an ordinary day. He finishes reading the first volume of a fantasy novel, The Strongest Hero in Another World. He then begins to head out of his room. Suddenly, Toa finds himself in a massive coliseum filled with cheering crowds. Toa is completely bewildered by the sudden change of scenery. A boisterous king points directly at him, proclaiming him to be the chosen hero. The king demands a display of the hero's power in a duel against a warrior named Sekidu, the guardian deity of their land. Toa remains confused, thinking he was just at home and must have fallen asleep. Sekidu grows impatient with Toa's confusion. He tells him to gather his soul energy or chakra and show him his soul form or karma. As the crowd begins to jeer, Toa wonders what he's talking about. Sekidu, feeling disrespected, unleashes an immense pressure and prepares to attack. The crowd roars with excitement, recognizing Sekidu's karma and screaming for him to kill Toa. Sekidu charges forward, announcing his attack. Terrified, Toa realizes his life is in danger as a strange energy begins to puff from his hand. As Toa flinches, something flies from his hand. A ring clatters to the ground. Sekidu looks on, annoyed. In the next moment, his sword flashes past Toa, who is utterly confused. Toa's right hand falls to the ground with a thud. Sekidu sighs, calling him a disappointment. Toa stares in shock at the bleeding stump, the immense pain hitting him all at once. Mocking his cries, Sekidu looms over the terrified Toa, who can only beg to be saved. As Sekidu kicks him, Toa cries out in agony, questioning why this is happening to him. The king and the crowd erupt in laughter at his pathetic state. Sekidu looks down on him, calling the entire situation a letdown and questioning if this is truly reality. The king laments his foolishness for having high hopes for someone from another world, declaring the summoned hero to be incompetent. Sekidu dismisses the event as a farce. Lying in a pool of his own blood and tears, Toa insists he never wanted to be there. He screams, asking what he did to deserve this. The king silences Toa's protests, stating that their glorious kingdom does not tolerate incompetence. He orders his men to throw the trash back to the mirror, setting its destination for a mountain range. As he's dragged away, one of the guards mockingly tells him to enjoy his sightseeing in another world, adding that the mirror will take him to hell. Toa is forcefully pushed through the mirror's surface. As he passes through, he sees the smirking faces of his tormentors. Filled with rage and hatred, he calls them bastards. He makes a solemn vow that he will never forgive them. Back in the ravine, the girl watches as Toa continues to mutter about his revenge. She wonders if he's gone mad from his injuries. Deciding to put him out of his misery, she reaches for him, stating that she will end his suffering. However, she stops when he speaks of getting revenge against the humans. As Toa repeats his vow, the girl kneels beside him and asks if he was abandoned by his own kind. He coughs up blood, unable to respond clearly. The mysterious girl leans in close and asks Toa a simple question: does he want to live? Lying on the verge of death, Toa wonders if this person is an angel or something else entirely. Her expression turns sinister as she gives him her terms. He will become her sidekick and work for her until the day he dies. Toa's perception shifts, now seeing her not as an angel but possibly a devil. Regardless, he decides it doesn't matter what she is. Toa's mind flashes back to the faces of the king and his court. With tears of determination in his eyes, he realizes that if he can just survive, he can get his revenge on them later. The girl senses his decision and declares the matter settled. To seal their pact, the girl leans down and kisses him. As she pulls away, she announces that the pact is complete and he will now live. Toa awakens in a cave, groaning in pain. The girl warns him to be careful as he just came back from the dead. She apologizes, explaining that she couldn't restore his right hand to its original state. Toa smiles faintly, telling her it's okay and that she's already helped him enough. She dismisses his thanks by calling him a pain. The girl boasts that he should be glad a respectable adult, who has lived for thousands of years, was there to save him. When Toa asks who she is, she decides to introduce herself. She proudly introduces herself as Ludarija I Aishwaya, a member of the strongest clan in the world, the Dragon Clan, and a rightful heir to its throne. Finding her name too long, Toa decides to call her Luda, which she finds cheeky. He then questions her claim about her clan being the strongest in the world. With a somber expression, Luta reveals a painful truth. The mighty dragon clan was annihilated by the humans. Luta clarifies that she believes there are other survivors out there somewhere. She is determined to find them one day. Toa understands, realizing that Luta, like him, is alone in this world. Luta apologizes for getting sentimental and gets up to fetch some water. Suddenly, her movement is interrupted by a sharp noise. A massive bear-like monster appears, swiping Luta aside. Toa shouts her name in alarm. The beast growls menacingly. Luta explains that the monster must have been drawn to the shift in his chakra. Remembering his own vow of revenge, Toa steels himself. He declares that he can't die here either, as a fiery energy surges from his body. Luta urges him to quickly channel the chakra into his right hand. Clenching his bandaged hand, Toa unleashes a massive blast of energy, obliterating the monster in a single powerful explosion. Later, while cooking the monster's remains, Luta remarks that she's never seen a karma like his and asks if he's really human. Toa reminds her that humans were the ones who abandoned him, so he will help her regardless of her species. Luta calls him a fool for not being able to control his own strength. She notes his power is unfathomable. Luta offers to train him to wield it, which would make him quite powerful. Toa realizes that with her guidance, he might become strong enough to get revenge on those who wronged him. Luta reminds him that he must become strong, as he will be her traveling companion on her quest to find the Dragon Clan survivors. With their goals aligned, she extends her fist. They fist bump, sealing their new alliance. This small pact would become the beginning of a revolution that would one day turn their world upside down. Toa stands at the cave entrance, shouting that if this is his new reality, then he wants to squeeze some boobs. Luta stretches and yawns, asking Toa why he is screaming so early in the morning. Luta poses, asking why Toa is staring at her, and assuming he cannot resist her beauty. Toa deadpans that he is not into flat chests. Luta delivers a sharp kick in response to his comment. Toa explains that being truthful is part of his training to master his karma, which Luta defines as the soul form born from one's life force. Luta explains the importance of looking at how one truly feels inside their heart. Toa reflects on his true feelings. When his true feeling turns out to be about boobs, Luta strikes him again, calling him an idiot. Frustrated, Luta declares that she will have to teach him through experience. Toa stands in a fast-moving river, finding it difficult to maintain his footing. Frustrated with his lack of progress, Toa is suddenly tasked by Luta with finding food. Luta tells him to use his karma to hunt. She explains that his soul form is unusual and might be able to reshape his body. She instructs him to try imagining his body turning into a weapon. A large, monstrous wolf appears, startling Toa. He realizes this is bad, as he did not sense it coming. The wolf rears up and lunges towards him. Toa lets out a scream as the beast attacks. Toa is violently thrown into the water by the wolf's attack. He screams in terror, realizing he let his guard down and the wolf is serious about hunting him. As the monster closes in, he begins to fear that he is about to die. A flashback shows Seikadu standing over his defeated form. He remembers begging not to die. The desperate feeling of not wanting to die screams through his mind. His eyes glow with power as he remembers Luta's instruction to burn this feeling into his mind. Toa unleashes his soul form, a massive construct that erupts and skewers the attacking wolf. Toa returns to Luta, who observes that he seems to have made a breakthrough. Their harsh life in the mountains continued after that incident. Toa is shown fighting a large boar with a shield-like karma. He battles another horned beast with a different weapon form. A massive bear is seen feasting on its prey. The terrifying beast turns its attention to Toa, who stands ready to fight with his karma activated. The mighty bear lies defeated on the ground. Though battered, Toa stands victorious. Luta asks if this was the king of the mountain, and Toa confirms it. Recognizing his strength, Luta declares that he is now ready. Luta tells Toa there is no point in staying on the mountain forever. Toa is ecstatic, realizing he has finally graduated from his survival life. Luta confirms this with excitement. She announces that they are now going down the mountain. Walking down the path, Toa remarks on the height of the mountain they were on. He recalls his nemesis, a karma user with a massive sword who was called a guardian deity. Luta explains that since he formed a simple ring, it was no surprise they called him incompetent. However, she insists he is not incompetent as he manifested his karma instantly, a feat that normally requires years of training. Luta encourages Toa, telling him to hold his head high. Filled with new resolve, Toa declares that he will surely defeat his foe. Luta agrees but adds that in the meantime, he will use that power to protect her. She reminds him that he has to pay her back for the hard training. As they look for a place to rest, they spot a yurt with someone standing in front of it. Luta is puzzled by the nostalgic chakra emanating from the old man. She tells Toa she doesn't know him but has a suspicion. The old man calmly states that he has been waiting for them, addressing Luta by her full title. The old man finishes by addressing Toa Kazuki by name. Luta eats enthusiastically, remarking that it's been 600 years since her last proper meal, much to the old man's delight. Toa feels uneasy, wondering how a human could suddenly appear and know their names. He questions how they can trust him so easily. Luta sees his concern and offers an explanation. She describes the traveling folk who listen to the voice of the stars to gather intelligence. The old man confirms Luta's explanation, stating that this knowledge has protected many lives by allowing them to foresee disasters. He explains that soul energy from nature can tell them many things. Toa likens it to reading the flow of human chakra to discern thoughts and actions, which Luta calls a superpower. The old man explains that his task, given by the voice of the stars, is to guide them to their next destination. Luta asks him what their destination should be. The old man prepares to tell them where they should head. The old man reveals their destination is Fenanfine, the kingdom of the demi-humans. Luta muses that she had also thought of that place, as there are legends of mythical beasts there. Toa realizes this could be a chance to find more of Luta's kind. The old man informs them that they must pass through the human kingdom to reach their destination. For that purpose, he gives them a travel pass and a map. Luta thanks him, while Toa marvels at how well prepared he is. He adds that their current attire is inappropriate, and that he has prepared a change of clothes for them. In their new clothes, Toa feels he looks like a knight, while Luta strikes a pose. Luta playfully warns Toa not to fall for her in her stimulating new outfit. The old man places a cloak over Luta, telling her to wear it properly. The old man explains that Luta's hair is a characteristic of the ancient species and should be kept hidden. He mentions that despite a recent peace treaty, prejudice against demi-humans is still strong. He adds that many humans lament that beautiful species like the elves were not kept as slaves. Luta grimly agrees, knowing how vicious humans can be. Toa then asks if Luta can unleash her own karma. Luta reveals that while she was able to form it in the past, she can no longer do so. The old man tells them to get some rest and depart at dawn. Toa thanks him for all he has done. The old man explains that this is his first and last duty as one who listens to the stars. Toa is left confused by his statement. The next day, they thank him for everything and set off. Toa and Luta wave goodbye to the old man and begin their journey. Toa reflects that their host was a good person. Luta disagrees, saying he was neither good nor bad. She explains that this is simply the fate of those who follow the guidance of the stars. The old man declares that he has now fulfilled his role. Offering a final blessing that the stars may guide them, his body begins to dissolve into light. Toa looks back, sensing the old man has vanished. Luta checks the map and points out their current position. They arrive at the gate of the human kingdom's frontier checkpoint, Zipranica. They join a large crowd, wondering what is going on. Suddenly, Toa is struck by a shocking realization. Toa is shocked, realizing the chakra he feels is familiar. He urgently tells Luta they have to go, and she agrees. Seikido sits in a carriage surrounded by women, looking bored and expressing his disinterest in a victory parade. Toa stares at him, his expression filled with intense rage. A sudden, overwhelming panic seizes Yuri as he recognizes a figure from his past. The sight of Seikido, the very man he sought, sends him reeling, his breath catching in his throat. His companion quickly grabs his trembling hand, urging him to calm down. She reminds him to get a grip, as other Karma's users might be around. Yuri apologizes for his reaction. He agrees that their priority is to pass through the checkpoint safely. At the gate, Mina asks a guard about the unusual crowd. The guard explains it's for Seikido's victory parade. He hails Seikido as a guardian deity who brought peace by purging other races and invites them to the celebration. Mina thanks him for the invitation. The guard warmly welcomes them to the city. They step into the bustling streets of Zipranica, the capital city of the human kingdom. Yuri notes how crowded the streets are. He accidentally bumps into a man. The man immediately becomes aggressive and challenges Yuri to a fight. The confrontation quickly draws the attention of onlookers. The crowd gets excited, with some even placing bets on the outcome. Annoyed, Yuri realizes he has no time for such distractions when he needs to find Seikido. The man refuses to let him go, grabbing him and citing an unwritten rule that duels cannot be refused in Zipranica. Yuri tries to apologize and leave, but his patience wears thin. The challenger suddenly backs down and lets Yuri go, hiding his fear. Yuri is left confused by the abrupt change in his attitude. Mina, however, smirks, having just overheard something very interesting. Mina proposes that Yuri should challenge Seikido to a duel during the parade. She explains that challenging him in public would be more effective than doing so privately. In front of the crowd, Seikido would have no choice but to accept. After all, he is the kingdom's esteemed guardian deity. Yuri realizes she has a point. As the moment approaches, Yuri's hand begins to tremble and he questions if he is scared. He wonders if his fear stems from his past helplessness. Mina senses his anxiety and reassures him, reminding him of the strength he now possesses. Mina watches with a supportive smile. Bolstered by her words, Yuri steels his resolve. Just then, trumpets blare, signaling the start of the parade. Seikido appears, waving to the adoring crowds from his carriage. His victims could only look on in terror. Seikido believed that a cry from the heart was more beautiful than declarations of love. He found it more appealing than obvious lies. A terrified woman could only ask why he was doing this. In the memory, Seikido goads his victim for a better scream. He reveals that he misses the battlefield. He longs for the days of one-sided slaughter and the screams of despair just before death. Lost in his dark reverie, Seikido longs to experience the thrill of the battlefield again. His thoughts are abruptly shattered when a voice calls his name. He turns, a flicker of disbelief on his face, as he recognizes the voice of the boy standing before his carriage. Yuri points directly at Seikido and loudly challenges him to a duel. Seikido's initial shock quickly morphs into a wide, manic grin. The crowd roars with excitement. The challenge makes the event even more interesting. The crowd eagerly begins placing bets on the fearless boy. Seikido steps down, mockingly addressing Yuri as the incompetent hero and expressing surprise that he's still alive. Yuri replies that he never thought they would meet again so soon. Seikido mocks Yuri for returning only to be crushed again. He questions the power emanating from Yuri's hand. Yuri reveals it's not a trick but his karma. Seikido scoffs at the idea. He reminds Yuri how easily he was defeated with just one hand last time. Seikido warns that this time he will have to kill him, but his threat trails off. Unfazed, Yuri calmly asks if Seikido is afraid he might lose. The duel is officially announced. Yuri reflects that the scene is reminiscent of their last encounter. However, he knows this time will be different. He has endured hell for the sole purpose of defeating Seikido. Mina watches intently from the crowd. Yuri prepares for battle. Seikido stands ready. The two opponents take their stances. A referee raises his hand and declares the start of the duel. Yuri wastes no time, igniting his soul form and lunging at Seikido. Their first clash results in a powerful explosion. The blast engulfs the dueling ground in smoke, stunning the onlookers. From within the smoke, Seikido taunts his opponent, asking if that's all he's got. But Yuri, his perception heightened, sees the attack coming. He blocks the sword and lands a counterattack of his own. Yuri stops Seikido's sword mid-swing. He lands a clean, powerful punch directly to Seikido's face. Enraged, Seikido declares he doesn't even need his soul form for trash like Yuri. He unleashes a brutal barrage of punches. Seikido is shocked by his opponent's resilience. To his utter disbelief, Yuri remains standing. Bruised but undeterred, Yuri throws the taunt back at him, asking if that's all he has. He continues to fiercely defend against the attacks. Yuri uses his deer antlers form for defense. He then switches to his bear paw form for offense. Seikido is stunned by the display of one form after another. He realizes Yuri's power is nothing like it was before. The crowd murmurs in amazement at the unknown karma user's skill. With each successful blow, Yuri's confidence soars. He begins to truly believe he can defeat him. Pushed into a corner, Seikido unleashes a furious, powerful slash, screaming that Yuri is incompetent trash. The force of the blow tears a massive gash across the dueling ground. The attack lands, and Yuri is struck by a strange, black substance. The crowd looks on in shock. Mina cries out in horror. Yuri collapses to his knees in agony, wondering what just happened. Seikido stands over him, remarking that it couldn't be helped. Seikido's form shifts, shrouded in dark energy as he reveals his weapon. He states that while he was reluctant, he will now finish the fight using his karma's final form. Yuri stares in horror. Mina is equally terrified. Mina cries out for Kazuki to escape, her mind flashing back to their training. She had explained that the karma's final form was an ultimate technique only achievable through unwavering determination. A younger Yuri, still recovering from his injuries, had asked about its strength, and Mina warned that a novice like him stood no chance against it. In the memory, Mina had given Yuri a dire warning. If he ever faced a karma user who had awakened their final form, he must flee immediately or face certain death. Back in the present, Seikido stands transformed, wielding a massive scythe, the embodiment of that very warning. Yuri struggles against the immense pressure emanating from Seikido. From the crowd, Mina desperately pleads for him to run away. Yuri considers his situation, acknowledging that fleeing would be the most logical choice. However, as he catches his breath, Yuri resolves to stand his ground. He realizes that if he runs now, he will be on the run for the rest of his life. With newfound determination in his eyes, Yuri prepares to face the transformed Seikido. Seeing his resolve, Seikido grins and accepts the challenge. Seikido smashes his scythe into the ground with incredible force, shattering the stone beneath. He taunts Yuri, promising to cut him into little pieces. Seikido unleashes a powerful air slash. Yuri manages to dodge the ranged attack, but is left confused as to how it works. Despite dodging the main swing, Yuri is suddenly struck in the arm by an unseen force. He clutches his wound, bewildered that he was hit even after dodging twice. Seikido smirks, amused by Yuri's confusion over how the attack connected from a distance. Seikido presses his advantage, refusing to let Yuri rest and taunting him to dance. Yuri is forced onto the defensive, struggling to evade a flurry of attacks he cannot even see. Believing his only chance is to get in close, Yuri charges forward. However, Seikido effortlessly sidesteps the attempt, calling him too slow. He lands a powerful kick that sends Yuri flying. Yuri feels helpless, wondering how he can possibly fight back. Seikido boasts that no one has ever managed to counter this move. As he watches, Yuri has a sudden realization. Perhaps the invisible slashes are actually chakra being channeled and separated from the scythe itself. Yuri manages to block another unseen slash. Seikido mocks him, asking if he has already given up. Ignoring the taunt, Yuri focuses, determined not to let his opponent's words distract him. As Seikido threatens to cut off his limbs for display, Yuri recalls Mina's training. She taught him to expand his awareness and read the flow of chakra around him. This would allow him to discern an opponent's thoughts and actions. He closes his eyes and concentrates, trying to feel it with his entire body. Seikido confidently unleashes another air slash, expecting it to hit its mark. He is left utterly confused when the attack misses completely. The watching crowd is also perplexed. Having successfully dodged the long-range attack, Yuri closes the distance in an instant. Seikido is shocked that his attack was dodged. Before Seikido can react, Yuri lands a devastating punch squarely on his face. The powerful blow sends Seikido staggering back. Yuri gives him no time to recover, relentlessly dashing around him. He lands a series of brutal, impactful strikes. Mina realizes with astonishment that Yuri has awakened the ability to read the flow of chakra in the middle of the fight. Seikido is in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend how this is possible. The power that had built his entire reputation was being completely overcome. Panting and desperate, Seikido demands to know how the once incompetent hero can see his attacks. His energy spent, he collapses to his knees. Mina observes that the final form is a one-hit kill technique that consumes a massive amount of chakra, leaving the user vulnerable if it fails. With Seikido's soul energy depleted, the outcome of the fight is sealed. Yuri stands over his defeated foe, looking down at his pathetic state. Defeated and terrified, Seikido begs for Yuri to save him. He apologizes for everything. The plea triggers a painful memory for Yuri of when he was the one crying and begging for his life. Fueled by this memory, Yuri grits his teeth and strikes his former tormentor once more. With a final powerful kick, Yuri shatters Seikido's sword. The symbol of his power breaks into pieces. Seikido is left broken and weeping on the ground. Yuri clenches his fist. He looks down at him with cold resolve, telling Seikido that the next time they meet, he will kill him. An announcer, after a moment of stunned silence, declares the mysterious Karma user boy as the winner. The crowd stares in disbelief. They look upon the wrecked arena and the defeated Seikido. Mina rushes to Yuri, praising his amazing performance despite the total defeat he suffered initially. The crowd chatters excitedly about the fight. Later, Yuri finds a quiet alley to sit and finally lets out a sigh of relief. Mina finds Yuri and immediately pulls him into a tight hug. She calls him reckless and says he still acts like a child. She then offers to take care of his injuries, gently tending to a scrape on his face. Mina suddenly recalls that he called her by her real name, Kazuki, during the fight. Yuri gets flustered and tells her to forget it. To distract him, Mina triumphantly presents a large sack overflowing with their winnings. Mina explains that she bet all her money on him. Their successful bet has made them rich. She suggests they celebrate his special victory, but the exhausted Yuri would rather rest. She eventually convinces him, and they decide to find a nice inn to stay in. Yuri reflects on his victory. He acknowledges that his right hand has finally carried out a piece of his revenge. He knows there are still more people he needs to take down. But for now, he allows himself a moment to enjoy this hard-won triumph. As they walk through the streets, they pass a line of chained slaves being led by a trader. One of them, a weary-looking young woman with long red hair, glances up with a desolate expression. A flustered Kazuki finds himself surrounded by cheerful waitresses. In a bustling tavern filled with demi-humans, he wonders how he ended up in this situation. Luta had suggested they visit a tavern to gather information. She had noted that while finding an inn was important, they also needed clues about her people. The idea excited Kazuki, who imagined it would be like something from an RPG. The lively atmosphere, however, was more than he had anticipated. Luta teases him for his trivial excitement, questioning if he's been living under a rock. As they talk, a man approaches their table and asks for a moment of their time. The man politely asks if they are having a good time. After Kazuki asks who he is, the man apologizes for his lack of manners. He introduces himself as the tavern owner and a member of the city's governing family, explaining he approached them because he assumed they were nobles. The tavern owner offers them a stay at his mansion for the night. He suggests it would be a fitting accommodation for such distinguished guests. Kazuki quietly asks Luta for her opinion on the offer. Luta agrees, seeing it as an excellent opportunity to use the family's resources to research the mythical beasts and learn what lies ahead. Kazuki also consents to the plan. He knows he needs a safe place to heal his body as quickly as possible. The owner offers to arrange a night companion for Kazuki if he desires. Flustered, Kazuki quickly stammers that it's unnecessary. He then asks to be guided to the mansion, and the owner agrees. They arrive at a grand mansion. Kazuki and Luta are shown into their room. Kazuki is impressed by the size of the luxurious room. Luta excitedly tells him to check it out before diving onto one of the beds. Luta joyfully bounces on the bed, comparing it to a cloud, while the owner expresses his satisfaction. While Luta plays, Kazuki sits down to tend to his injuries. He uses his unique treatment method, transforming karma into needle and thread, a technique requiring precise chakra manipulation in a safe environment. He notes that it still takes a while, even with intense concentration. After healing, Kazuki finds Luta on a balcony. He looks down and is shocked to see people being forced to do manual labor. He asks if they are slaves, and Luta confirms it without a doubt. She points out that the workers at the tavern were likely slaves as well, noting the chains on their ankles ensure there is no chance of escape. Kazuki is confused, recalling that a peace treaty was supposed to have made humans and demi-humans equals. Luta explains that a treaty can't change the reality that they are in the land of humans. As they watch, a man brutally beats a young woman. He then drags her away by her hair. The sight leaves Kazuki horrified. Enraged, Kazuki declares his intention to help the woman. He argues that the woman might die if he does nothing. Luta grabs him, urging him to calm down and not draw unnecessary attention. Unable to simply stand by and watch, he shakes off Luta's grip and rushes out. Luta is left behind as he slams the door. Running through the streets, Kazuki curses his own excitement from earlier. He realizes with a jolt that the lavish room and his enjoyment were all built on a system that exploits weaker races. He desperately searches for the person he saw being dragged away. His search leads him to a large outdoor cage filled with demi-human slaves. The slave trader from before approaches him from behind, asking if he's looking to buy a slave. Kazuki grabs the man, angrily demanding to know what happened to the person he was beating earlier. The trader is startled by his aggression. He questions what Kazuki's problem is, stating that such teaching is something everyone does regularly. The trader yells that since the girl wasn't bringing in any profit, he was planning to get rid of her anyway. He then callously throws her limp body into the cage, where she lands on the hard ground. The sight triggers a traumatic memory for Kazuki. Looking at the girl lying on the ground, Kazuki sees a reflection of himself. He remembers how he was also taken against his will, wrecked completely, and thrown away like a useless object. He kneels before the cage and asks the battered girl if she wants to live. The girl looks up at him, her expression weary. Kazuki holds his hand out through the bars. She hesitates for a moment before weakly acknowledging his question. With great effort, she drags herself forward and reaches for his outstretched hand. Their hands connect through the bars. The slave trader intervenes, yelling at her not to touch a customer. In response, Kazuki shoves a wad of cash into the trader's mouth. Kazuki declares that he is buying her and asks if the money is enough. The trader, stunned by the large sum, exclaims that he can't accept so much. Ignoring him, Kazuki tells the man to find some clothes and shoes for the girl, and the trader eagerly runs off to comply. Kazuki uses his healing ability on her injured hand. He then gently asks for her name. Looking at him with gratitude, she tells him her name is Rufia. After getting her new clothes and shoes, Rufia stands before him. Kazuki compliments Rufia, telling her she looks great. Rufia shyly pulls the hood of her cloak over her face. Just then her stomach lets out a loud gurgle. Kazuki smiles sheepishly and apologizes. He then suggests they go get a meal. While they eat, Kazuki reflects on his actions, admitting he got ahead of himself. He realizes he rushed out without considering the consequences and should have listened to Luta. Rufia quietly asks why he bought her. Kazuki explains that it was because he couldn't just abandon her. He reveals that he too was dragged to this world against his will, and his fate, just like hers, was decided by others without his consent. He tells Rufia he couldn't abandon someone who, despite everything, hadn't given up on life. He assures her he won't treat her like a slave and that she is free to live as she pleases. He then asks if there are things she wants to do or people she wants to meet. Rufia explains that everything important to her vanished during the war. With their homes and relatives gone, they had no choice but to become slaves to survive. She sadly concludes that if asked about things dear to her, she has nothing left. Hearing this, Kazuki realizes how ignorant he is about the world. He begins to question if his decision was the right one. Rufia tells him that since he gave her freedom, her first new goal is to repay his kindness. Understanding her resolve, Kazuki smiles. He then asks if she would like to meet his friend. He thinks about Luta, his traveling companion who saved his life. He anticipates she'll be furious with him for rushing off on a whim. To appease her, he decides to bring her some of her favorite sweets. Returning to the mansion with Rufia, Kazuki opens the door to their room, ready to apologize to Luta. They are met with a shocking sight. The entire room has been completely ransacked and destroyed. Kazuki stands in shock, wondering what happened. He calls out for Luta, but there is no answer. Rufia recognizes the scene from her past experiences. She explains that this is what a room looks like when someone tries to capture a slave indoors, pointing to marks of resistance on the curtains. A terrible realization dawns on Kazuki. In his zeal, he had forgotten something crucial. Luta is shown bound and gagged, crucified against a stone wall, with the final thought that the humans in this world can never be trusted.